What we demonstrated before was creating individual SharePoint lists with their own list columns. Now, the problem that you'll run into when you're doing this is that each column you created in each one of these lists is specific to that list. So if I have created column A in one list that's maybe designed to store, say, someone's name or address, these very common metadata fields that happen throughout the system, if I create that same column again in another list, they're separate, even though they are really holding that same pieces of information. So wouldn't it be nice if there was a way that instead of having them be separate, that we could create a column so that that column is actually the same column in both lists? Well, to do that, what Microsoft does is introduce the concept of site columns. So these site columns then can be contained within the individual SharePoint site collection. So they're scoped on the site collection level, and they can be extended. So I can actually extend my site, or I'm sorry, I can add different site columns at different site collection levels and in the web. So in my root web, I might have a site collection called address 1. But then in a lower level web, I then say, you know what? This web is destined for another country, so I'm going to need to add a country code. But in this web, it also inherits the address 1. So then you don't have to create a separate address 1 column as well. What this then allows you to do is centralize all your metadata, add it to the search indexing, and make it so that if I have the same column in different lists, I know that it has the same data, and therefore I can treat it the same way. But also what you saw was I only had one type of item. Well, what if within each list that I might have, or in the case, because lists are document libraries, so a document library is just a special template for a list. What if I have tax forms as well as payroll forms? Well, while some of them might have similar information, in fact, there could be a relationship where a payroll form actually is extended by the tax form, but the metadata is actually different. So in this case, I wouldn't want to go and just create a new item in the same item type. I actually want to create different content types. And while in Documentum there are relatively few content types, in SharePoint it's common to create a whole bunch of different object types for each different type of functionality that you're going through. So if I go ahead and navigate into my SharePoint site, I'm going to go ahead and create a couple content types. To do this, I go into the site settings, and then I choose that I want to create a site column. And I'm only going to create 2 site columns here real quickly. But the first of which I'm going to call payroll or pay amount. And this, of course, will be a number. And I'm going to create a new grouping for it and call it payroll. Now, the grouping has no other purpose than to organize your site columns. And then I'm just going to accept all the other default values and select OK. When we scroll down here and we find our payroll grouping, we see that we have pay amount. Now also, I'm going to create the site column tax amount. So how much did we actually get taxed on that payroll? And let's call that maybe a number, but the difference is, oh, let's make it a currency even. And United States currency. Again, now because I've already added the payroll group, I don't have to type it in, so I can select an existing group. I'm going to click payroll. So what we have just done now is we have created two site columns. These site columns then will be used now when we create our object types, or